Electricity is so weird. Why does it have to hide where we can't see what's going on? Welcome to 3D Accuracy, where I'll talk about 3D printing, 3D product design, and 3D injection and die-cast mold design. I mean, what's going on in there? Why doesn't this work? All I can see is this outlet. And I'm assuming the wires run from the breaker box outside and somehow run along this wall and comes to this outlet. Now, from here, I have no idea where the hell the wires go. I assume they come to this one next. All I know is this one doesn't work right. Now, what has happened is this outlet has never worked. If I plug something in, I get zip. These used to work. This one did. The light switch on the wall for the light outside, the outlet over there, the outlet on the wall. Now, what happened was it kept tripping the circuit breaker. So I knew something wasn't right, but what, I don't know. It worked, and then all of a sudden it didn't work. Now, I'll show you the fuse box. Let me take you out there and show it to you. And what would happen is if the circuit breaker was on, it would trip. So I came out here just a little while ago to check it, and the circuit breaker, this one right here, was off. And I thought, well, let's see if it's still doing what it was doing before. And I put the circuit breaker on, and it stayed on. What the hell is going on? Why is this happening? I have absolutely no idea. Okay, let's go back in the shop where it's cooler. It's almost 100 degrees out here today. I don't want to stand in the sun. So I'm going to close this box, and let's go inside where it's cooler and we can talk. Yeah. So I thought I had this figured out, what I was going to attempt to do to get the electric running back in the shop again, and it threw me a curveball. How come it doesn't work? And then I flip it today and it works again. Yeah. So here's what I was going to do. I didn't know whether I had a bad circuit breaker or whether I had well, I know this isn't wired correctly, I know that, or if I had a bad outlet here, the CFGI outlet, or if there was a problem down the line somewhere in one of the other outlets. So what I was going to do is I checked the breaker box and the breaker was off. I was going to come in here, move the 3D printer out of the way so I could get at this easier. And I was going to disconnect this outlet. I was going to remove it from the wall. So I just had the bare wires in there. Then I was going to go to the breaker box and turn on the breaker and see if it tripped. I figured that way it would tell me whether the breaker was bad or not. I thought, well, logically it makes sense. If there's nothing connected to it and I turn it on and it flips off, then the breaker, something's wrong with the breaker. And I could replace it. I had another 20 amp breaker here that I could slip in there. Although I think, oh, this is a double. The other one was a single. So this one wouldn't have fit in there anyway. But, so I would have had to have gotten a new one. But, so I go and I thought, okay, take this off, check it and see if the breaker flips when I turn it on. If the breaker turns on, then I was going to come in here and check to see if I had electricity at the wires inside. If I had electricity coming this far, then I was going to reattach this outlet. First, go turn off the breaker, of course. Then come back in, reattach this outlet, but disconnect the wires that go to the line that go down to the next outlet in what I assume is the next outlet in this string. It would make logical sense because this one over here on the wall is the closest one. I was going to disconnect it and only put this outlet, then go turn on the breaker again. If that worked successfully and I had electricity here, then I was going to move to the next outlet, disconnect this one from the wires that go beyond it, and then reconnect the wires at this outlet to see if I could get electricity to here. And so I was going to do that process one at a time, jump down, get in here with my voltmeter and check this, see if this was okay, and do one at a time down the line, process of elimination, to try to find out where the problem was. Now, the fact that the electricity came back on leads me to believe that it was something else. What I know about electricity is you never lick your finger and stick it in the outlet because you're going to get a shock. You don't take nails and you play with them inside there like a little kid because you're going to get a shock. You don't open the circuit breaker box and you start digging around in there without knowing what the heck you're doing because you're going to get a big shock. And so I'm very cautious with electricity because I know my knowledge of the subject is limited. So I try to think it out logically and take one step at a time. All I know is I have one of these outlet tools that tell you if the GFCI plugs are wired correctly and all the other ones. Now, when these two lights come on, the one in the middle and the one on this end, then the outlet is wired correctly. And when I put that in here, it's a little difficult to get it in there because it's not in the wall. But you can see nothing happens. It doesn't come on at all. When I plug it in to this guy over here, you see the two lights comes on, which tells me by this information here that the correct wiring. I have the correct wiring because those two lights come on. And every one along the way, that one's correct. I come down here along the wall to the outlet over here and I plug it in. Get in there. That one's correct. That one's correct. Come out. And I go over here along the wall on these outlets. That one's correct. This one's correct. This one over here, this one's correct. And this one's correct. Now, when I go in the house and I check the ones there, even though the wires appear to be reversed, it tells me it's connected correctly with this little tool I have. So now I'm confused. I know something's not right. And I know that when I wire this correctly, what I did was, when I thought I was suspicious that this was no good, so I went to the store and I bought a new one. And I followed the instructions and I put it in exactly the way it was supposed to be. And the new one worked perfectly. But all the outlets down the line, that one didn't work, the light didn't work, the other outlets there didn't work, only the CFGI outlet worked. So I'm thinking now that perhaps these outlets are wired backwards. I need to reverse the wires inside, but I don't know for sure. I'm going to pop this one open and see if the black wire is connected to the brass screw and the white wire connected to the silver colored screw, or if they're backwards, because that may be why when this GFCI outlet is wired correctly, the other things downstream don't work. Something along the line is out of whack. What that is, I have no idea. I'm only guessing. So I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm trying to think, what can I do next? So I got to think about how to proceed. What the hell's going on here? See what I don't like about electricity? All the wires and everything hide in the wall. You can't see what's going on except for where the outlets are. You don't know which one connects to which one for sure. You're only guessing at best. So, I need to think about this. I need to think about this. I know this one on the wall here in the shop, the CFGI is wired backwards. I know when I wire it correctly, it does not trip the circuit breaker, but then it's the only outlet in line that works. Everything else downstream does not. So something is backwards. Now, what I would like to know, if anybody has any idea, and they can explain it in very simple layman's terms so that a novice like myself can understand which wire should be connected to the small slotted in the outlet and which should be connected to the large slot in the outlet. Whether the black wire goes to, the large one or the small one. Well, if I look here, hell, I can look. The line coming in, the hot wire, which is black, on the new outlet, I'm looking at the back of this, see? At the back of this GFCI. The black one, or it just says the hot wire, but the white wire goes to the lighter colored connections on this side, and the hot, which would be the black in this case, goes to the brass connections on the other side. So I'm assuming all the outlets should be the same. I don't, this should be some sort of a standard. It's not going to be every outlet's different, because that would be stupid. And problematic and extremely confusing. So anyway, I'm going to open up that other outlet and see which way they're wired. See if that gives me any indication that, oh, he wired those backwards, and maybe that's why when I wire the CFGI outlet here on the wall correctly, nothing else works. So let me do that. I'll pop that one open and see what the connections are like inside of there. Okay, I'll let you know what I find. Okay, I just took the cover off of this outlet here so I can see inside, and I can't really tell where the wires are coming and where they're connected. It's in the back of the outlet. You can see them hiding back there. And I used my little light on my phone, but I still couldn't see where it was going. So this is now live. I know that much. Okay, 120 volts, that makes sense. So I turned off the circuit breaker, and I still have this set for checking AC volts. I got the black lead in the small slot, the red lead in the long slot, and I'm getting 0.7-ish volts. So the electric is off. It's okay, so now it's safe, or should be safe. And what I'll do is I'll undo the screws, carefully pull the outlet out, and then I'll check the wire leads just to make sure there's no voltage before I start touching things. I just want to be double sure that there is indeed no voltage coming to this thing. And so I'll do it slowly and carefully. Now I have to turn off the video and put the phone down. I can't hold it with one hand and take out that outlet with another hand. So I got to do it one step at a time, and then I'll show you what I have. I have another GFCI outlet outside by the door, and let me show you what that one's about, because that one is a problem also. And I don't know if the two might be interconnected or if it's a separate issue, but let me show you what that looks like. Let's see here. Now, I've got another outlet on the wall, which is a GFCI, and I took the little cover off of it, and you can see when I test it, let's see, which one is the test button? They make these letters on here so small I can't even read that stuff. Look at that. How the heck are you supposed to know what to do? Ah, there it says test. Okay. See, when I press that, I get nothing. I press reset, I get nothing. I put the little tool in there, dead, nothing. And the same with that one. I get absolutely nothing. So that should be presumably on its own circuit. The GFCI, my understanding is it should be the first outlet in a line, in a series of outlets connected to the circuit breaker box. So there's nothing tripped on the circuit breaker box. All the circuit breakers are functioning and on, with the exception of the one that I just turned off, right? Let's go check and see if that one's still off. Just to make sure. Because I don't know if that has anything to do with this one or not. Let's find out. Okay. No, it's off. Okay, let's turn it back on. Now let's see if that GFCI outside works. All right. Confusing. All right, let's see here. Let's test. Nothing. Let's reset. Nothing. Plug in. Nothing. Nothing. Now, all the outlets, all the circuit breakers are on, and it's dead. That might be a problem. That outlet might be the problem. But why it wouldn't trip the circuit breaker, one of the circuit breakers, I don't know. So it looks like I got to pop that one open, see if there's electricity coming to it, behind it, because the wires may be live, but the outlet itself may be dead. And so, because I've got some outlets in the house also that don't work, that are right behind this wall over here. I've got outlets in the room that's behind there that don't work, and this may be what's causing that problem. Confusing mess, right? Okay, so now I have to remember I have the power on and that outlet opened up, so I got to be careful with that and don't want to touch that guy. Well, as confusing as this mess is, I'm making progress. I figured a couple of things out. Okay, opening up the sockets and looking at the back, I've realized that the black wire needs to connect to the short slot on the outlet. It's marked on the back of the outlets, okay? So that told me which ones need to be where. So I figured that out, okay? I learned something today. Then I went back in and I checked in the house again with my voltmeter, and those are the same way in the house. I thought they were backwards for some reason, and I'm confusing myself. So they're not. They're the same as out here in the shop. The black probe goes in the small slot, which is the power, and the red probe goes in the long slot, which is the neutral, return, whatever you want to call it. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter to me as long as it works. You can call it whatever you want. So anyway, then I got thinking about this ground fault outlet, the GFCI. What the heck is it? GFCI, right? Is that it? Let me look on the box. I keep confusing that. Where does it say? Yeah. Oh, I know where it was. I saw it on my little tool, on my little gizmo here. All right, yeah, GFCI. Okay, that's what it is. I don't mean to confuse anybody worse than I'm confused myself. Here, see, it says on there, focus, GF. Anyway, it says GFCI on there. Ground fault circuit indicator, I would guess it means, or something of that nature. Anyway, so that GFCI outside the back of the shop on the wall there, that one's deader than a doornail. So I thought, gee, I wonder. I've got electric to everything in the shop. I want to check that other room in the house and see. So I go and I take my little GFCI tool with the little flashy lights on there that tell me whether it's wired correctly or not, and I stick it in the outlets, and bingo, it's perfect. It's working. So I try the next one. Bingo, it's working. I try the next outlet. Bingo. And I'm going around the room and I'm checking outlets and I stick it in one of the outlets. Bingo, it's perfect. I pull it out of the outlet and pooh! I get a little spark and it blew the circuit breaker. So I now know that in that outlet there's a short. There's wires, something's touching, something's not right. And I went out and checked the circuit breaker, and sure enough, it blew it. Everything in the shop is dead. And I tripped the circuit breaker to turn it back on, and it immediately kicked itself off. So I know I've got a short in that junction box where that one outlet is in the house. So I've got to open that up, see if I can correct that little problem there, and then it should be fixed, with the exception of this GFCI outlet that's on the wall in the shop, because when I wired it correctly, and that outlet still does not work, but when I wire it correctly, nothing else downstream works. So I've got to look at that one again. I'm going to pull that 3D printer away from the wall and open that guy up and make sure, double check and make sure it's wired correctly, and see if I can get that outlet working, because I would like that one to work as well so that everything functions. Now, the other issue I have is we have outside lights on the front of the house that do not work. And somebody mentioned to me, previous owner mentioned that it may be this GFCI outlet at the back of the house here, at the back of the shop by the door. So I've got to see if I can replace that one with the new one that I bought and see if I can get the lights out front working, because it may be directly connected to those guys. So one step at a time. First, I got to fix that short in the house and get all the outlets back on. Then I'll address this GFCI outlet that's in the shop, because I'd like to use that one and it doesn't work. So I need to figure out what that problem is. And then last, I'll deal with that GFCI behind the shop here and see if that works and gets the lights out front working. So anyway, I hope I'm not confusing everybody. This is not an educational channel. You don't want to come here to learn things. You want to come here to be amused and laugh with me. Although we do learn, don't we? We did learn a little bit along the way. So. But I'm by no means an expert at this electrical stuff. But I'd really like to know more about it. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you're ever in need of 3D product design, 3D injection mold design, 3D die-cast mold design, or 3D printed prototypes or production parts, please feel free to contact me. You can find contact information in the video description. I look forward to hearing from you and to being of service to you. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it. See you on 3D Accuracy's next video.